Cup of Joe with Grampa Dez. Hey, Will, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. It's been a long time. Obviously
Yeah,
you have two identities online. So you
yeah,
have your old Des Walker alias from the one message board, and you have your real Paul Fontaine name, and I
correct.
never quite know. And then of course you were the witch that
No, the
Brian
secret spy.
Alvarez
The
was
secret
getting
spy.
his MMA tips from.
I didn't
And so
see
yeah,
your. What are you drinking there? I got Tim Hortons coffee.
I am drinking Maker's Mark.
Oh,
I've
cool.
got a
Well,
Maker's
it's
Mark and
five
Coke.
o'clock somewhere.
It is always 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
I actually, my son is living in Alberta at the moment,
Okay.
and whilst I was there, I was drinking like a ton of Crown Royal,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and it's so nice. And I was like, I was going to get some from the airport, and I was like, no, it's all right. I'll get some when I get back to Britain. Oh boy, that is so much more expensive.
Yeah,
in
I'm not.
the
Yeah,
UK.
I'm not a drinker, but when I was, that was definitely it. My dad loved his Crown Royal. When I was a kid, the parents would get Crown Royal, and they would come in these little purple bags, and then we would use those bags to carry our marbles.
Well,
Um,
funny enough, my
yeah,
ex-wife
yeah.
came back to England for a few days, brought me a bottle of Crown Royal as a Christmas present, and I did the same thing for my son. I gave them the purple bag for Beyblades,
Oh
these
yeah, yeah,
spinning top things.
yeah.
He used the bag to store them. Circle of life. Nothing ever
When
changes.
when I was a kid, though, like everybody had their little Crown Royal bag, um, with and it was full of marbles, and then you would go and you'd play marbles as a kid, and yeah, it was yeah, that brings me back. So yeah, I'm happy that you mentioned that. So the last time we spoke, I think, like I've never actually seen you face to face. I was wondering what you actually looked like. But the
No,
last time
you
we
she hadn't.
yeah. Well, no. Uh, it's so it was right around the time when WWE had just signed their big deal with Fox, I think, and I was on your podcast. It could be
Yes,
said.
yes, because that's when we were doing wrestling episodes, where it could be said.
Yeah, yeah,
Now it's just a politics podcast.
yeah. I've seen your Substack, and yeah, you got
Yeah,
you do the odd wrestling, but
yeah.
I remember you saying at the time that you thought that you were pretty convinced that by the end of this deal that Fox would not even be around. Like they were getting ready to kind of get out of
Yes.
broadcasting, and didn't quite work out that way. I don't think anybody really predicted the future. I mean, this was before AEW was a thing. The network was in full string, and the network's gone now. Well, not for you and I. You still get the network in England?
We still get the network.
Okay.
There were rumors they were trying to shop it,
Yeah, I've heard that too here.
but not they haven't succeeded yet.
I mean, I think we're lucky because from what I hear about Peacock, the cock don't work too good. You know, my American friends. I gotta invite you into our Fight Game Media Facebook group. I don't know why
Oh
you're
no, I'm
not
in
in
it.
there. Oh, you are?
No,
You in there?
I'm in. No, that's a
Oh,
really good Facebook
okay.
group.
I never hear you commenting in there, so I wasn't sure. I guess maybe occasionally you'll comment on stuff.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean it's pretty active group, and yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on a lot of different things, and a lot of UK people in there. I don't know if you know David Lovell. He always posts the Mount Rushmore stuff.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and Daza, Daza, right? Darren Wadsworth.
I think I remember the name.
Okay.
I think I lurk in the Facebook group. I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's
but
not
no,
terribly active. I've known Daza for like 10 years. He's come out to Vegas for our Figure 4 conventions. So how you been? I haven't really talked to you much since the pandemic and everything. You're holding up okay?
Yeah, no, it's been good. As I said, it's one of these things where I obviously you stop going to live wrestling because of lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the impact of coronavirus for British wrestling was compounded by Speaking Out, which hit us a lot harder Then he did America, and so now is like the time when things are back to normal, and it's like, oh, we can go to shows again, and good shows are being run, which we may talk about
Yeah,
later.
I mean, you know what? We'll talk about whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, my son has moved to Canada, so I'm looking to go into Alberta twice a year.
Oh,
And
cool.
I was just doing my kind of calculations for the forthcoming year, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to get to go to many wrestling shows until he comes back next year after my wife.
Is he going to school or what?
Yeah, so he's going to school in he lives in Medicine Hat, so he's going to school. I think I've got a virtual parents' evening tomorrow.
Oh.
But his mother's a soldier.
Oh, wow.
So she's got like a 2-year placement in the Canadian army base. So this is a thing, the British Empire never really went away. Ourselves, the Australians, Canadians.
We still celebrate Victoria Day.
Still all interacting and working together behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, when you look into the cost of those holidays,
oh yeah,
it's just like, I'm not going to go to many wrestling shows until next year. But other than that, good. I
haven't been to a wrestling show since I'm pretty sure Double or Nothing, the original one, 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean we don't get a ton of indies in and around Winnipeg, and even less good ones. I had a ticket for All Out in September because Chicago it's about a 12-hour drive, and I bought it when the tickets went on sale, hoping that I would be able to go, and not knowing what the restrictions would be. And as the time came up, it looked it just wasn't going to happen. So I ended up selling it. I could have got a profit, but I just sold it for face value to a friend. I missed probably the best pay-per-view in history.
I had the weirdest one when I first went to see my son, which would be about September last year.
Yeah.
Arrive in Calgary, get to Medicine Hat the following day. There was wrestling in Medicine Hat the day I arrived. There was Calgary Pro Wrestling was running Medicine Hat, and Medicine Hat's,
yeah.
Even by Canadian standards, it's a fairly small town.
Yeah, maybe 40,000 people or something.
Yeah. It's not a big place. But yeah, they just happened to have wrestling, and I was thinking, do I go to the wrestling? I am staying with my ex-wife. Do I really want to get off on the wrong foot? So I thought, no, I won't go to wrestling the first day I arrive.
It probably wasn't very good, I would imagine.
It'd be something to say, country to check off that you've seen wrestling in.
Exactly. The local stuff here is not good. I mean, we have we had was it CWE, I think, Canadian Wrestling Elite, where we would get Billy Gunn would come in and he'd be like the big star, and then it was just a bunch of local people for the most part. We have our locals that have been wrestling for 20-30 years in some cases, and those are the guys that like Kenny Omega came up with, and then as soon as he got good, he got out of here. And then he would come back every once in a while because he's friends with the promoter. But it's
the problem Canada has, and it's the same issue Australia has. You're just too big and sparsely populated. It sounds like a boring, weird thing, but you actually look at the hotbeds of pro wrestling. Its population density is clearly playing a factor. Like the parts of America that are hot for wrestling, Mexico, Japan, and Britain. Now, Britain's smaller because of it's been chronically underinvested and mismanaged for the past 30, 40, 50 years. But even Britain, at the start of last year, there was this big buzz around Aussie wrestling, and we all thought that the Australians who had came to Britain to wrestle wouldn't come back. No, they'd gone home, but it seemed like Aussie wrestling was going to be a big deal. But actually, the sad fact is no matter how well an Australian promotion is run, it's still miles and miles away from a second city. So you can't run a regular loop. You can't hit 4 cities in a month without incurring flights and fees and exorbitant costs. Whereas in Britain, I live pretty much in the middle bit of the country, just at the bit where it starts to become the north of England. I'm still only 2 hours away from London.
Yeah.
And I'm 2 hours away from like the most northern major city in England. You know, it's just a very small, compact country with a lot of
And,
people in it.
and hear me, like I'm, in Canada, the closest city that's bigger than Winnipeg would be Calgary, and that's a 14-hour drive. And I can go south into the States, and Minneapolis is the biggest city, and that's a 6-hour drive. So that's not too bad, but I mean, that's what I'm looking at if I want to go see any, and even Minneapolis is relatively isolated. Like there isn't a ton of like big wrestling that's like you'll get your WWE will come in there. AEW has gone there once, but I mean, they don't really have much of an indie scene. Chicago is better, but that's 12 hours for me. And it's something I could do, but then I got a family, and to leave your family for, 12 hours each way, you're talking about 2 days to go see a wrestling show. And it's just not really feasible for me.
The thing we don't get in England is the drives you have in Canada. Because I arrive in Calgary, it's a 4-hour coach journey to Medicine Hat, and there is nothing to see.
Nope.
Like it's just frozen. Well, it wasn't frozen; it was summer. It's just tundra. It's just grassland as far as the eye can see, and like you just don't get there in England. Like there's always something to look at.
Well, so I used to do a trip as part of my job when I was a courier, and I would drive airplane parts, and I would drive them to Wichita, Kansas. So it's a straight shot. If you look at the map from Winnipeg, it's just 14 hours south. Basically, like you would drive for an hour, and then you would see like a town. And I'm not talking a city. I'm talking a town. So you would go Fargo, and then Grand Forks, and I knew them off by heart. Fargo, Grand Forks, Sioux Falls, and then Sioux City. And then there was actually one spot where it was like 2.5 hours in between. And you're driving in the middle of the night. You try to stay awake for 2.5 hours with nothing, like no lights, no, like no city, no, you would get the odd little like habitat, where there would be, like a gas station, or a McDonald's. And I mean, this is what I drove through. And like those drives were, like 14 hours. I got paid very well to do it, but not something I really want to ever do again. But it also made some of these trips easier. Like we drove to WrestleMania in 2016, and we're planning on doing it again this year if all goes well in Dallas, because it's just a straight south trip. But I mean, you're talking hours. Like we're not doing it in one day. And 20 hours for you, like you can't drive 20 hours on, on the British Isles. Like
if you drive in a straight line for 20 hours in Great Britain, you'll end up in the sea.
Yes. Yeah. Or I mean, so if you cross the channel, like, and you go 20 hours, where are you in Russia? Like,
maybe not as far as Russia, but no, you'd get pretty far. You'd be pretty far into Europe. So I think it takes like 11 to do Great Britain from the very top in Scotland to very south in England.
Really? I wouldn't even think it was that much. Okay.
But here's the thing, though. Hardly anybody lives in the north of Scotland. Yes. So, like, England is where most people live. And most people in England basically live between Manchester and London. And then in Scotland, they literally have a twin belt between Glasgow and Edinburgh, which is where most people live. Most of Scotland's empty. So most people in England are within like a 6-hour journey. Most people in Scotland, like, you add on about a few hours on top of that. So it's incredibly dense country.
If you look at Manitoba, which is the province I live in, so I think our total population of our province is 1.3 million, and Winnipeg itself, which is the city I live in, is maybe 900,000, maybe close to 1 million. So 70% of the population is in Winnipeg. And if you actually go, like, if you take from Winnipeg to the border, to the U.S. border, it's an hour. I think I've read 95% of the population lives within an hour of the U.S. border. But if you actually look at the square footage, the actual province of Manitoba, it sounds like it's about the size of Britain. Because if you drive straight north, you will get to Thompson in about 12 hours. Or no, maybe it's Churchill. I don't know which one's further north. And I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. Like there's nothing. And in fact, most people that are going to Thompson will fly there because like it's a tough drive. Like you talk about tundra, like that is actual tundra that you're driving through for the last 3-4 hours of that. And then they get, if you work up there, you're getting paid, like triple what you would make in Winnipeg because everything costs so much more. But what people tend to do is they will go up there, they'll work for 6 weeks, they'll bring their supplies with them, and then they'll come back and spend their money, and then they go, and they go back and forth because you can make a lot of money by not living there. But it sounds like what you're talking about with Northern Scotland. Like except, I mean, we're like, if you're in Churchill or Thompson, whichever is north, I think it's Churchill, you're actually closer to the Arctic Circle than you are to Winnipeg. Like it's cold.
Well, this is the thing, like, because it's weird because like Scotland is actually much further north than you think. Because I remember, I've been, the places I go to Scotland are a bit more northern than Glasgow, Edinburgh. Like I've got a friend who lives in St Andrews, which is like a university town. And so I was checking the latitude of where this place in Scotland was compared to where I was going in Canada, and this place in Scotland was actually more northern. But the issue is we have the Gulf Stream, so Britain has a much more temperate climate than it should, which is one of the reasons why global warming may make Britain colder.
Oh, okay.
Because one of the theories is that the polar ice caps melt, that may disrupt the Gulf Stream, because like we should be a much colder country than we are, but the Gulf Stream protects us. Now, the one thing I was shocked by, because I said I went to Alberta in September last year, and the summer was so nice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's so warm. There's not a cloud in the sky. There's no rain.
I mean, and it gets, you're probably averaging, 28 to 30 degrees Celsius through the summer, which, for anybody in America that's listening, 80 to 90, for most of the summer. And then even in the winter, like the winters are relatively mild in Calgary, even though it's much further north than Winnipeg. I think because of the mountains, it might temper it somewhat. But you'll get your really cold times, but then like you might get 2 feet of snow and then it all melts, like 2 weeks later. Here in Winnipeg, like we got snow in mid-November, it's still here and it's not going anywhere till probably late next month. Even today it hit 0 today. I mean, last week it was -40. So I mean, we have pretty extreme weather, and today like a lot of it's melting, but my driveway is, I got a sheet of solid snow / ice. I was chipping away at it this morning and pulling up these huge blocks of ice, like that are like 2 feet. It's just crazy. And, trying to lift those, and, I do it for about 10 minutes and my back is too sore. But if we get a couple more days of mild weather, I'll get my driveway clear again. It's not bad when it's smooth, even though it's snow, like it's packed really well. And so it's not bad. And my daughter's in a wheelchair, so I have to make sure it's, it's navigatable. Yeah, that's a word. Yeah. So, I'm glad you reached out. I was going to contact you. You're on my list of people. If I've ever been on someone's podcast, and if you're watching this, you will be getting a message from me at some point if you haven't already. Because I like to talk to different people and have different conversations. I've had like some really cool guests. I don't know if you've had a chance to check out any of the shows, but
I saw the show you did with Dave recently. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Oh, I really enjoyed that. He never did answer the question I wanted him to, but I'll try to get that out about the Beach Boys. He wouldn't give me a favorite Beach Boys song. I guess I put him on the spot. I should have told him ahead of time. Are you? We never really talked music. Are you really into like what kind of music are you into?
I've got a very broad taste in music. Before I had kids and responsibilities, I used to go to Trinidad Carnival every year.
Oh yeah,
so for 3 years in a row, I'd go to Trinidad Carnival because I had friends out there. And so I got really to soca music, which is it's like sped up calypso. So it's if you think dancehall, it's like it's even faster than dancehall. And it's great. But the problem is you can only really appreciate if you go out there, because the way the music scene's set up is there's not really any music. There's not really any money in releasing CDs or singles.
Mm-hmm.
You release new songs to get to basically to do what they call fetes, which are like gigs, and like all aspects of Trinidadian civic society will have their own fetes, so like the army or schools or different companies, and they'll pay performers to come and perform. You then, at the end of the carnival period, you'll have the really big shows that are like for ticket holders. And so like I went a few years and I just really fell in love with that music. And it's it's not the type of music you would think I would like. From what
it sounds like, it's like this kind of stuff that you almost have to experience live as opposed to like listening to it.
The first time I went, a friend got me to go, and I had no idea what I was getting myself in for. To me, it just sounded like a park disco, the way he was describing it. And so you get to this huge cricket stadium in Port of Spain, in Trinidad, and there must have been like over 10,000 people, and it's absolutely rammed. And the way it happens is, it's like you get this huge, like we would say in rock music, like mosh pit. Mm-hmm. And the final song played, which has been like my phone ringtone ever since, which is Fantastic Friday by Super Blue, which should be the SmackDown theme song, Fantastic Friday. But we were like 2/3 back from the stage. But it was one of those ones where it's like you either dance or you die. Like you will not be allowed to stand still. You kind of have to jump up and down as well. And since then, I just fell in love with it. And it's so much good music, and it's a beautiful island, to go and visit, and the food's great and the people are great. So I listen to a lot of soca, and then all bits and pieces. I mean, the one thing I've noticed other than soca, I have done that classic thing I think everybody does, when you get to about 25, 26, maybe 30, you just kind of stop accumulating new bands you follow. Like you have the bands from your youth, and they're the ones you like. So, like I was a big Placebo fan, Queens of Stone Age, a lot of that stuff in the 90s and noughties.
What's that? Their big Placebo, Pure Morning, their big hit.
Yeah, so Pure Morning, Nancy Boys. I've seen them quite a lot. I was a huge Motorhead fan as well.
Oh yeah.
So I saw them, and they now you're talking about a band you don't appreciate if you don't see them live. They were an immense live band, even when they were quite old. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen Black Sabbath play, and Ozzy Osbourne can't really sing anymore, and this was like 10 years ago, and he's still touring. But like Lemmy, until pretty much the end, that guy could still sing, and they could still belt out the songs.
That's a little heavy for me. But I know what you're talking about, because I know Bon Jovi. I saw Bon Jovi a bunch of times, and the last few times, like John Bon Jovi can't sing anymore, and he's not even nearly as old as Ozzy. But they literally have to change the key of the songs for him even try to sing them. Yeah. But he's more into like politics, and his new stuff is more like country and stuff like that. So, and as soon as he starts playing his new country songs, that's like piss break time. And then the last time is just like, nah, I'm not paying to see John Bon Jovi anymore. If this is what I'm in for.
It's so weird with those veteran acts, because they almost become their own warm-up acts in a way. Because I remember seeing Red Hot Chili Peppers.
McCartney
about 8 years ago, and like they could play and they could still sing, and the old songs were fantastic, and everybody in the arena was going crazy for them. And then they play a new song, and they just be like, no one knows this song, no one likes it. Now, I should admit, I've mentioned like things that make me seem credible or cool. My last gig I went to was Britney Spears.
Oh wow. Hey, I used to sing Britney Spears in karaoke, but I would do it differently. I would sing it. I would go like, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know? Like just almost like a stalker, like that sort of thing. And it worked. Like people really dug it, and then and that have like,
There was a
there's people that
there's,
would they do the echo part, like some of the girls in the crowd would like, do it. Yeah.
there's
What
a
were you gonna say?
band in Britain that did that, like kind of turned it into like a rock song, Travis. And that became one of their more famous songs, and
I
just said
may
Britney
have heard
Spears.
it, and that may be where I came up with the idea for it.
Yeah.
There was a show called Rockstar Supernova, Rockstar in Excess.
Okay.
It was like 2 shows in a row, and one of the guys on there did this. His name was Marty Casey. So
Okay.
he did that, and then but it's hard because you're doing it to the actual song when you're doing karaoke. You're not doing like,
Yeah.
when they do it, they're actually changing the,
Tone
the
it down.
guitar and everything. They're bringing it down. Yeah. So you kind of have to adjust it a little bit, but I have fun with it. I always like to have fun with karaoke, and when I used to drink, I would have a lot of fun with karaoke.
Well,
I'd-
the thing with those, talking about those Trinidad Fets, one of the things that's different with them is there's 2 types. There are ones that you can bring your own alcohol into the gig, and so you'll just come with like, a big crates of your own booze. But what all of them do, even the ones that don't let you bring your own alcohol in, they will let you buy bottles of rum or
oh
scotch or vodka or whatever drink you want. They'll let you buy it at the bar for like equivalent of probably $15. You can get
oh
yourself a bottle of
wow.
rum and like a normal size bottle, not a small bottle. Just get yourself a bottle of rum at the concert. I
Like a
want
12 ouncer or even
uh
bigger.
70 centiliters. What's that in
Oh,
ounces?
I
So
don't know.
the default size.
Yeah,
But there was
that's
normally I behave myself at these, but there was one I went to where
actually
I got
I think that's 24 ounces.
yeah, it could
Yeah,
be a full size bottle.
yeah, yeah.
There was one I went to that I got absolutely paralytic and ended up lying down on the floor, having lost my dentures.
I think this is 16, so it would be bigger than this.
Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, you're. See, I need to throw a little bit of alcohol in there, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but it's not 5 o'clock here.
no, it's not.
Yeah. So you hinted at earlier that that maybe we talk a little bit about what's going on right now in England in terms of
Mm.
wrestling, and obviously there's a match that just happened that has got a ton of buzz. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if I will. You probably know which one I'm talking about. Dave brought it up on the show. We did the Osprey Oku match. I think he had just watched it when I recorded the
Yeah,
show, so he was hyped up about that. I'm not okay. So I have to be honest. Like Michael Oku, when I heard that name, I thought that was one of the Japan guys that came over for excursion, because I think there was a guy named Oku. But that was Great Okan, right?
that's Okar. That's great
Yeah.
Okan. Yeah,
So who's this Michael Oku?
yeah. So he's kind of it's an interesting one. So he's like a young up and coming British talent.
Okay.
He's not done anything stateside except the one Rev Pro show back in, I want to say, 2019. I think he had a match against Brian Cage for Rev Pro.
That was WrestleMania weekend, right?
Wrestle for WrestleMania
Yep.
weekend.
Yeah.
But he's been somebody who's really grown as a performer. He's an odd mixture. He's a bit like someone like how Sean Waltman was in the 90s, where he can do high flying, he can do quite spectacular moves, but he's not really a high flyer. He's not somebody who will go in for 50 minutes and do spot.
So maybe more like a Daniel Garcia then?
No, because what Oku's strength is basically his selling and taking a beating. So he's not a strong style wrestler either. So this is where you go and say he's a high flyer, because his most spectacular offense is high flying moves, but he spreads them out much more in his matches. And his best matches are much more about him being the underdog, him taking a beating, him coming back strong. And he's really, really good. He had an awesome match against Pac back in the summer of 2019,
Smaller
which is
guy?
when
Is he
say
smaller guy?
again.
Is he a smaller
Yeah,
guy?
he's got decent height. But he's very slight in build.
Okay. So
Um,
maybe even more like a Shawn Michaels almost, like
yeah,
before, as he was coming up. Not so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of what wrestling, he looks like a bit in terms of body shape is Lee Moriarty. I
Oh
think
yeah.
he's a bit bigger.
Okay.
But yeah, he's got a similar body shape to Lee Moriarty. But like, he had an awesome match with Pac. He had awesome match with El Fantasmo. And the thing with him is he's built this real connection with like the London crowd.
That's what it sounded like from. I just read the write-up that Dave did, and I was kind of like telling myself, I'm not going to go out of my way to see this. I don't follow Rev Pro. I don't. I'd have to pay to see the match and everything, and I'm just like, there's so much good stuff. What? Oh, is there?
Free trial.
Yeah, maybe I got to do it. And then the other thing is, and here's my general consensus is, I don't like watching matches from promotions that I don't follow. And the reason for that is because I don't feel like I get the proper context. Like it'd be like if you watched a movie, but you didn't, or a TV show, but you didn't watch a TV show, but somebody said, oh, hey, there's this really great episode of The Sopranos you should watch. And meanwhile, it's like, I don't watch The Sopranos. Yeah, but this episode's so great. Like, even if you don't watch it, you'll love it. And I'm like, I don't know, but I mean, it's wrestling. So it's, and it's Will Ospreay and he's great. I don't, the funny thing is,
just to your point about that, I absolutely think you have a very good point there. This is a storyline match. You need to understand the story. I am sure you will not enjoy it as much as someone like me, who has seen Oku's rise and understands what like a coming out party this is for him. But what I will say is, Rev Pro did put a lot of work into trying to give you enough of the context to get it. So there's a very good like promo package that kind of details the feud, shows you the key moments.
So they probably knew that we got a classic here. We better tell the story. Yeah.
And also the dynamic is such a basic dynamic, like the cocky global superstar champion versus the beloved territory babyface. And two guys play the roles so well. They're so natural at it. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Like, I'm not a big fan of long matches. I've kind of got sick of them. I watched this on VOD. I didn't go to it live. I watched it on VOD, and I loved the match. So I
don't particularly mind long matches. I'm not against them at all. In fact, I think in some cases, if it needs to be long, it's long. And if it's a good long match, you don't even notice that it's long. Sometimes 10 minutes is too long, and sometimes 40 minutes isn't enough. I just watched the CM Punk. So the funny thing is I was watching the CM Punk MJF match. I just watched that when I recorded the show with Dave. And when I heard Dave talking about the Will Ospreay Michael Oku match, like I kept having to like, okay, which match is he describing? Because it sounds like he's talking about CM Punk and MJF, because
I've not got round to watching that yet.
Okay, so it's a similar story.
When you read the write-ups, they do have a similarity.
Yeah.
The one thing I think there is that they have spots to add real personal needle into it in a way the crowd gets jumps
with
on.
The girlfriend and
with the girlfriend. Yeah. Way actually on Post Wrestling, Wei Ting made this comparison, and it was
I gotta get him on my show. Yeah, I gotta get him.
It's one of the things that I was thinking of, which is it's very much like the role Owen Hart was playing with Martha Hart in the Bret Hart Bob Backlund match. Like and like Andy Quildan, one of the ironies of Andy Quildan like having to battle WWE for the past 5 years to save his promotion is Andy Quildan is like a huge WWF fan of the 90s, and a lot of his booking is kind of those tropes and the modern day guys. And you can just feel like the whole shot of the family, Ospreay kind of getting in their face, the heel commentator making jokes about it. It's very Survivor Series 1993.
You could even go to the classic, and it's a forgotten classic. the Shawn Michaels British Bulldog match from the original One Night Only, right? You know,
Um,
where that was the name of the show, right? Was it One Night Only or
they did do one, but I think.
the
Oh,
97? It was right
you
around
do
the
that.
time.
I thought you
It
were
was
going to
right
do the
before Hell in a
one.
Cell or right after it.
Yes, but I thought you were going to go with the one where I think it's sort of in '95 they did, where they
No,
do
no,
the
I'm
thing.
talking the one where he won the European title,
Yeah, that's '97.
or where he retained it, where British Bulldog had promised his dying sister with cancer that he was going to win the title, and then he didn't. I have never in my life hated a wrestler more than I hated Shawn Michaels on that night. Um, and it was a little bit of the real life and a lot of the story. Like and Shawn Michaels was always my favorite. And for about a 6-month period in 1997 and into 98, I hated him more than I've ever hated any wrestler in history. And then when he came back in 2002, I was the biggest fan again. So, time heals all wounds. But
When you said Bulldog, the one that flashed in my head was when they were doing the feud, when they were saying that Diana Hart had been cheating on the Bulldog, and it is one of the funniest things you'll ever see is the Jim Cornette, the video Jim Cornette telling a story of Bruce Hart ringing up to complain. Cracks me up every time I hear that. But it's weird because I wasn't watching wrestling when that match took place.
Okay.
And what's really interesting, the Bulldog comes back obviously in '99 to the WWF, and they have the Rebellion pay-per-view. And we used to get our own pay-per-views.
We got them here too.
And no one cared about the Bulldog.
No, he was basically wasn't he part of McMahon's entourage or something? Or was he feuding with them?
No, it was even weirder than that. He was the one who
he had the posse, right? He had the posse with
posse.
Yeah. That was where he had that weird look where he's wearing jeans and no shirt and and he rolled around in dog food on one. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was so weird because it's only 2 years after the fan base was rabidly pro Bulldog. But people like myself, the new wave of fans who came in with the Attitude Era, we just didn't care about a Bulldog. We cared about the American stars, and it's just really interesting. I don't think you'll ever get a British star that is seen as above the Americans like the Bulldog was. I just don't think the way WWF book or WWE books will ever allow it to happen. And I think
I think it could happen in AEW. If they were to sign a Will Ospreay, maybe 5 years from now, and if they're running England on a regular basis, I could maybe see it.
I'm not sure because I went to Royal Quest, which is probably the best wrestling show I've ever been to. Hi, Benno. Sorry, a friend of mine failed to go to Royal Quest, and he regrets it deeply to this day. But I went to Royal Quest, and divided reaction for Zack Sabre versus Tanahashi. Suzuki was the most over guy in the building, even more so than the Brits, and that was kind of weird because he'd been here so often, he'd almost became a British star. But I feel Bulldog was kind of the last of that kind of joint promotions, homegrown wrestling fandom in Britain. Now we are quite self-consciously fans of American wrestling or Japanese wrestling or Mexican wrestling. I don't think the average fan has that organic connection to the homegrown talent that people had in the 80s and 90s.
So you would almost need to have somebody come up through the WWE system and just happen to be British, like a Pete Dunne or Tyler Bate, but I mean, the ship sailed on those guys already, but, they're never going to be the top guy in WWE, but, not that they couldn't be. I mean, just saying they won't be.
I would say they couldn't be. I love both guys. I've watched many a great match involving them both, but they're short and they can't talk.
Right. I mean, Ilya Dragunov, but again, he's not UK. I mean, that's a guy that can talk, but he's small. Walter or Gunther is, he's got it all. And I do think he's going to get pushed very well in WWE, but he's not going to be the top guy, but he's going to be the guy that loses to the top guy. I really do believe that. I think he's going to have a nice run. He's going to make a lot of money, and and he's a guy that he'll probably get the title even at some point, but he won't have it for very long. And he'll be the guy that they build up to lose to Roman Reigns or whoever their next big Braun Breaker. Whatever.
Him versus Reigns could be excellent because it's one of those like forgotten classics. Is because the finish wasn't particularly good.
Survivor Series?
No, the Reigns Lesnar.
At
WrestleMania 31, the one where Rollins does the cash in.
Yeah, that was a great match before the cash in.
That was awesome. Like that's
a template. Like, that's a template for a Walter Gunther match. And even his boys, like they could have an awesome feud. If you turn the bloodline babyface and they could feud with Imperium, they could run for a year with that. All right,
so I got to say, what's his WWE name? Like Marcel Barthel or something? I can't remember.
Bartel, Marcel
yeah,
Bartel.
Axel Dieter Jr. when he was in WWE. Yeah. He went through before they formed Ring Camp, the indie version of Imperium. He was in a tag team called Hot and Spicy, and their entrance music is an amazing German rap song put to the music of Ghostbusters.
Oh my god.
And it's like this part of Germany that like Dieter Jr. is from is like northern Germany, and so it's all about why it's great to be a northern German. Like honestly, the first time I listened to this, it was stuck in my head for like a week. It is such a banging track.
That it sounds like those guys. It sounds like they're almost like a version of Pretty Deadly. I love those dudes.
Here's something like Pretty Deadly. I have for many a late night Twitter thread, I made clear my appreciation of Pretty Deadly as performers. They are the one example in NXT UK recently of people developing in that promotion. They hadn't really broken through in the UK. They'd only just start getting major bookings in like Progress or Rev Pro, but like. As always happens when people join NXT UK and the disciplines, their physique has improved.
Yeah,
they became more confident. Their promo work is good. The character work is good. I mean, it's not happened yet, but I really hope they get called up to NXT because I said I don't think Pete Dunne's ever going to be much in WWE.
And they've got size too, which is that's where they got it over grizzled young vets who are better in the ring. Yeah.
Hair.
Yeah, the hair. Oh god, the hair.
It's a gimmick.
Zach Gibson is underrated. Like that guy could be a single star. I guess he's probably small, but he can talk and he can wrestle. Small. Okay, Gibson's well there you go. Well there you go. Then maybe they'll because I don't really see much in his partner, Drake. Like he's there. He's got a good look. He's a very good worker. But he's just like he doesn't really add to it. He doesn't detract, but I think Gibson would be as big or bigger as a singles guy. I remember him in ICW and in there was a British indie we were getting for a little while, and he was that's where he started the Liverpool #1 thing.
I
don't remember maybe it was Progress. We used to get it on the Fight Network, maybe for a couple seasons. They had it was weird because they would have these seasons where you would have like 20 episodes and then they would take a break for like a month or two and then they come. What did you say?
Was it PCW?
Maybe. I think they gave it a different name here, but that wasn't what they called it there, but they gave it a different name here.
Okay.
And they had one of the announcers guys was one of the guys that got caught up in that Me Too thing. He was a former wrestler. I want to say his name was it Alex something or Shane?
Alex Shane.
Alex Shane, yeah, Alex Shane. That's it. Yeah, yeah. He was he was one of the announcers, and but that's where I don't remember all the guys. There was a mask guy, El Ligero, was on there, I believe, and that's where
Yeah,
I first saw
that
Zach
sounds like
Gibson.
it
Yeah,
might be
Zach.
QCW. It might be
Yeah, and
QCW.
yeah, that's probably it. And we only got it for like 2 or 3 seasons, but I remember it being a lot of fun. I used to enjoy that. And then you would see ICW where you'd see a lot of the same guys, but it was completely different. And that's where I first saw Joe Hendry. That's another guy, Joe Hendry, who I don't know why he's not a big star yet. Like he's got it all. But
if you ever Joe Hendry's his music videos,
oh my
parody
God.
music
Oh,
videos, I think he
you go
thought
down a YouTube rabbit hole, you can watch that stuff for hours.
I
Yeah.
think he thought I was taking a mickey out of him because like at the start of lockdown, I went, Joe, could I do an interview with you about your career? But I only want to talk about one bit of your career. And he's like, well, what bit of my career? Just the music videos. I just want to talk to you for an hour about those music videos. And I think he never got back to me. But they're really good.
Oh my God. We were in, I mentioned the trips that we did to Vegas. We got to wrap up soon, but we when I was in Vegas for the F4W convention, I had seen these videos and I'd ask people, have you seen these? Have you seen them? No. So I put them on. And so there was a group of about maybe 12 of us in the room, and I'd say half of us were like just could not get enough of these videos, and the other half were like, what are you guys watching? Yeah. So it was very much split. But I mean, I could not understand how anyone with any kind of sense of humor would not just think these were the best things that they'd ever seen. Like, and then I'm like, this guy is like The Rock, like he's going to be like the biggest star in the business in 5 years. And I don't know.
I wouldn't call him The Rock necessarily, but like he's also got, I don't know if you noticed, he's got as much as you can.
He's an amateur.
He's got amateur credentials. Like he went to the Commonwealth Games, not the most recent one, but the last one.
So is that part of why his career kind of took a hiatus a bit, because he took time out to do that? Because I know he signed with Ring of Honor, which I thought was a mistake, and he was in TNA for a little while.
I always thought he was a type of guy that TNA would suit, but I think when Grado left, that kind of took Hendry's spot with him. They were only interested in him as part of Grado's act, but I always thought Impact would be a good fit because he's such a personality guy. He's not a bad in-ring wrestler, but it's not his strength.
He would be like if he got into AEW and was able to do those videos on like BTE or like had a vlog, because you could do it. You couldn't do it on TV, but you could definitely do it, and they could promote it on the TV shows because those videos and the people's reactions. So when they would play in ICW and you'd see like Wee Man in the ring and reacting to, like to what he was doing, like, oh my God. And people just Google Joe Hendry videos and sit down for 2 hours and, thank me later.
The honest, so in terms of why his career, so yes, I think opportunities limited, stuff like that. The other thing as well is it's like a lot of people in ICW, he had a heel turn that didn't work, which is a running theme in ICW in the second half of the last of the 10s. The other thing is, it's quite hard for Americans, for Scottish wrestlers to gain traction. Ever since ICW fell from its perch in like 2016, 17, and the English promotions have taken over, and particularly the Southern English promotions like Progress and Red Pro. Scotland's, by British standards, Scotland's a long way away. The wrestlers would probably want to fly rather than drive down, and it's like we could either get somebody in our doorstep and ram it in a car with 5 other wrestlers, or we could pay £100 to fly this guy down from Scotland. Most British promotions pick the former. I think it's a shame. I think it's short-sighted. I think Joe Hendry could do a lot for people. And I hope he gets the breaks because I think
he's going to surface somewhere soon. With ROH going down, and
on Zach Gibson, just quickly, I think the thing with him that I don't think you will have seen, he is a guy that could have been like, what Dan Lambert's doing, like the anti-wrestling geek, the anti-smart promos. Zach Gibson can do them better than anybody. Like I've seen him roast an audience, not doing the Liverpool stuff, just roast them for being a bunch of wrestling smarks. And like if he got to do that in an AEW, or even the old NXT.
When
would
he
have been
did that, and
huge.
he did that, what you're talking about in ICW, and those people wanted to kill him, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, and these are like ECW bloodthirsty kind of fans that you'd think would be into it, but he pushed the right buttons, kind of like a Bully Ray, but more like biting, because you knew what he was saying was true, but he's such an asshole, and you want to kill him, you know. And
I can't remember who suggested this to me. I was in a conversation with somebody. The tag team should be brought up to Raw to be Sheamus's muscle, because Sheamus is a Liverpool fan.
Oh, okay.
So you have that connection, because they could have some awesome trios matches.
Yeah.
And I think if you explain
a stable with them and Ridge, like that's
Yeah.
like a British horseman.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. All right. So, you know, we should wrap this up. I definitely want to have you on again. We're getting close. This is one of the longest shows I've ever done, but I could go another hour with you if I wanted to. But I think what I want to close with is something special. And so we will close with the theme song that everybody loves. But before we get to the theme song, I pulled up this, and hopefully this works. And if it doesn't, you guys, you know, you're not paying for this anyway. So here we go. So.
What are you going to do? Is it going to work? See, I'm curious which, or is it the I'm Blue one? I'm Drew.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the ones he did for What Culture, because they've got better production values than the ICW one, and he does quite a good one where it's like a 90s love song about the fact that Will Ospreay can fly.
This was a big hit over here too. So.
Is it going to play? I can't hear anything, Des. No.
Listen, I'm Drew. I'm a dear.
Are you going to sing it for us? They are. They're really good.
Poor Drew trying to keep a straight face.
I love the parody of I'm Sorry. Oh, there's so many.
This is awesome.
I can't even hear it, but just watching you enjoy it so much is actually making me crack up. But yes.
Oh, you couldn't hear it?
I couldn't hear it.
Oh, I hope people could hear it on this. Oh well, if that didn't work, sue me. Google it. So for Will, I've been Grampa Dez, and this has been Cup of Joe with Grampa Dez.